Do you have a brilliant startup idea but are stuck in the launching phase? Are you feeling overwhelmed by funding, marketing, or just where to start? Don't let your startup idea stay grounded. Visit our website at eapla.com to schedule a Blue Couch meeting and launch your startup journey today.
All right, welcome back to On The Cusp. I'm lucky to have my co-host Matt Snyder back with me.
Dave.
I think this is episode 101.
101.
101, okay, that we've done. And who's our guest today, Matt?
Man, I'm excited about this one. You know, we have not brought a lot of nonprofits in because we talk to entrepreneurs. But I think this is an interesting one because of what they're doing in the community as well as our guests' connections in the business community. So today we brought Jimmy Graves from Community Renewal International here in Shreveport. We've been friends a long time. I'm excited to visit with you on the record.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you hosting me and inviting us here. And by the way, I signed on 20 years ago with Community Renewal International not to be a part of a nonprofit, but to be a part of a movement. I saw this as an entrepreneurial way to rebuild the social fabric of not just our community, but communities around the country. So while I appreciate the nonprofit status, I think we're a bit unique in our approach, and so that's what I signed on for 20 years ago. So thanks for hosting.
And you
thanks for coming.
You weren't a nonprofit guy before that.
Oh, no.
You were a business guy. You were selling medical devices and...
Well, I mean, it brings up an interesting point. Just because you're not for profit does not mean you're not trying to make money or raise money.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because you're in it for that very purpose. For
you can't get a lot done.
You can't get a lot done
if you don't have any money.
But just real high level. What is community renewal? What is it you guys do?
The elevator pitch is this: we connect caring people in order to change the world. How do we do that? We have three very simple strategies. One is citywide. One is block by block in everyday neighborhoods, whether it's the neighborhood you live in, I live in. And the third area is we work in intensive ways in the inner city areas through friendship houses. So citywide, block by block, and in our most underserved areas.
Oh, that is impressive. And I know a little bit about you guys. We've worked together with Dr. George, okay, with Community Renewal. Now, what is it? The community centers, the individual houses. Talk a little bit about that. What is that?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people really know us for. That's the most visible piece of our work, is what we call friendship houses. And that is where we send a missionary couple, rather than sending a missionary couple to Haiti or Nigeria or wherever, which we all know the need is great internationally.
It is.
But what about in our own backyard?
Yeah.
We have tough areas here that need really extra help. And there's beautiful people in those neighborhoods, and we've uncovered so many beautiful diamonds and jewels in these neighborhoods. So we hire a family, and we move them into what we call a friendship house. And it's kind of like a community center in a home, but it is a home. But in that home, our family lives with their children, if they have children, and then the whole downstairs is wide open to community events, i.e. after-school programs, adult literacy programs in the mornings for people who dropped out of high school and want to get their GED. And then a lot of things happen there on the weekends, bringing neighbors together, just really trying to rebuild trust and social fabric in some of those neighborhoods.
That's really key, because it's right there. And I agree with you. There's a lot to be done right here, okay, in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean we work together on the friendship houses in Cedar Grove in particular are literally maybe 100 yards from Line Avenue that I drive down all the time. And for years and years, until I got involved in community renewal, would have never known there was a missionary and the work was right there happening right next to you. And I always say, I mean, like, we own businesses right there. We live right there. You operate right there. The things that happen in those communities affect us all, whether you like it. And historically, the business community that I've worked with, you know, we don't worry about it too much. Hey, drive fast through that portion of Line Avenue.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's about it.
Yeah.
But then we'll go stick a business there and complain about the window getting broken. You know, and so I'm very passionate about the idea of connecting the business community to what's happening in those communities. And I've never seen anybody doing it, you know, more actively than Community Renewal in our community.
Well, I think the beautiful thing is when businesses get involved, you know, for years now, there's been a saying and a goal of many businesses, especially large corporations, double bottom line. Are we being financially responsible? Are we turning a profit? And are we being socially responsible? And we want to help activate businesses to become socially responsible. Think of the benefits, whether it's Red Ball Oxygen or Sports Spectrum, but one of the local businesses that do well in our city, getting their employees out, having team building opportunities, whether it's a backpack giveaway or whether it's our friends at Sports Spectrum fitting all of the Friendship House children with new tennis shoes, number one, that fit. You would be surprised the children in our community will wear shoes that don't fit.
Or don't have shoes at all. My daughter's a young teacher, I won't even say where, but the first day of school, for her first year ever teaching, young man shows up, okay, he has no shoes to his first day of school, okay? And she's in tears her first day. She calls me afterwards, and I said, Jackie, just go buy the young man a pair of shoes. Don't worry about it. And just take one additional step to do that. I'll send you the money. It's not a problem. And that got her started in her experience. And that's really what you're talking about. And I see that in a lot of businesses now, okay?
It's definitely shifted.
It has shifted. Even in startups, startup launch, and they got this great idea, and here's how we're gonna make money, and here's our social program that we're gonna contribute to that helps change our community.
Let's go down that a little, because I wanted to bring
Great
Jimmy
point.
here to talk about the bigger picture stuff, you know, like we do on this show. So my generation, there's some big changes here. I think the way, and this is a question, kind of, I don't know, take it how you will. I think my generation is not near the givers that our grandparents were financially writing the check. And probably our parents even. So that hurts from a fundraising for nonprofit side. But I also think that my generation is way more socially conscious than our parents' generation was. I feel like I hear like about the why in our businesses and what we can spin off and do for our community way more than I ever heard my dad and their group of friends talk about it. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
I think it's a fair assessment because most of the young people and the young couples you're talking about are raising young families. So they've got some skin in the game. They want a beautiful, safe, flourishing community for their children. So there's some self-interest there, right? Which is not all bad. That's good.
Right.
We want to provide great education. We want to provide great entertainment. And the list goes on for our families, for our children. You're talking about the greatest generation that ever lived, we refer to as the silent generation. You know, the 80-year-olds plus, and many have passed on, they felt a sense of obligation to the community. If I don't invest in the community and the community work, what's going to happen?
Right.
And so they felt very motivated financially. Now, I think one of our jobs at Community Renewal is to help the younger generation find creative ways to give. Whether it be a recurring monthly donation, if you're talking fundraising, whether it be an hour a week, and by the way, bring your family to the Friendship House, and your kids and y'all can host a birthday party at the Friendship House for kids that don't get one.
Yes,
at home.
It is incredible the amount of asks I feel like I get in a week.
Yeah.
Like that cannot be the same as my grandfather or my great-grandfather or my dad.
I think it was a little different. If we look back, you talked about the silent generation and then my generation, everybody was happy to make that reoccurring contribution to the one thing United Way.
Save the Wells.
Yeah, whatever. Everybody
the dog
had
commercial or something.
the one thing that they did, and they were happy to do that. Okay, now it's changed quite a bit, where it's more than just making that contribution, which I want to talk about the funding aspect of. There's lots of not-for-profits with great missions doing great things in our community. Is there enough money to support everybody and their mission in our community right here? Because like Matt said, if you own a business or you're in business, every day somebody's showing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Jack doesn't come home from school one day without, poor kid can't wear blue jeans without paying $3.
That is a fact.
They hit you. I'm getting hit up in ways I've never even heard of.
That's
and then
creative.
all the candy bars you have to buy, or the discount cards that you have to sell.
Yeah. And if you're in a business, okay, you're supporting this, this co-workers program.
People through the years have hired me, particularly to only hand me all that stuff and make me call and tell people no, so they didn't have to do it.
So is there enough to go around?
Well, I don't know the answer, yes or no, is there enough? But from the resources that I see that are available out there, there may be other resources that are hidden or not accessible. So there may be enough sitting in our region to cover all of the needs and the missions of all the churches and faith congregations or faith works and then the nonprofits. But as far as accessible resources, we have had to fish outside this region, which is not a bad thing. We want to build relationships with the Chick-fil-A corporates, which we just received a grant. We want to build relationships with Hewlett-Packard on a corporate level. We want to build relationships with the Rockefeller Foundation. And so we want them to know what's happening down here, because not just are we trying to move the needle in Shreveport-Bossier, but we want to replicate this thing, not for our self-interest, but that other communities can begin to implement simple strategies to rebuild the relational fabric of their communities. I read a book years ago, and this guy happens to sit on our national advisory board. His name is Robert Hall. He's a retired CEO of a customer service company, and he wrote a book called This Land of Strangers. And it talks about the relational crisis in America that affects our homes, our churches, our government, our workplaces. And so if I really was to share the core of Community Renewal, and Matt, you know this because you work closely with us, is we're not a poverty program. We're unique in the sense that we truly believe that so many of the societal dysfunctions that we see, whether it be homelessness, domestic abuse, crime, whatever, is a result of disconnect. Now let that just sit for just a minute. We really believe at the root is relational disconnect. And when Robert Hall wrote this book, This Land of Strangers, and I highly recommend it, of how the relational breakdown has occurred to where we don't really know each other anymore. We're more digitally connected than ever before. But it's really interesting.
But there's no sense of connection. Even though we might be digitally connected, there is not that relationship that you personally know.
That's exactly
that individual,
right.
Which is my, when I do it, I'm not a big social media fan, okay? Because people think they can just go out there and drop a bomb, okay?
Yeah.
And it has no impact. Well, that's not true, okay? So
it has a lot of impact.
Yeah, it has a whole lot.
Dave, we've witnessed, you and I, just in our time of 6 or 7 years of working together, the move to people working all the Zooms and all working from home and all that. And some of your meetings allow that, and I've always been a big proponent that I drive here and sit down with you, because the relationship part, the walking out of the meeting and talking about what's been going on in the city and what's going on with your daughters and what's going on with my kids, you lose that on a Zoom.
But that's what builds the connection you're talking about.
Right.
That right there.
That is what the world is losing, like all the time. An interesting thing that I'm not going to let us go without talking about is the friendship houses are serving these kids in these communities. These kids from little bitty kids up through high school. And some of their most impressive work to me is really done with these high school age kids and what they're getting out of them and the influence they're providing them that maybe some of these kids aren't getting at home. When I look at the newspaper and I'm watching our crime like everybody else is, we don't have a rampant gang problem like we did in the 90s. We don't have horrible crime that's just high level. We have a bunch of kids that are doing some crazy stuff that probably don't have a lot of guidance. When I look in the newspaper and I read the bad articles, the ages are 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old. Those are the kids in the friendship house. If we can get more of those kids in the friendship house, I think when people always, and it's an election year, what's everybody screaming about?
Crime.
The crime. You can't reach a 16, 17-year-old kid and get them not to cause this crime unless you're getting positive influences in their life. And that's what I see in community renewal and why I'm involved.
Well, Matt, in relation to that right there are 3 examples that have happened recently. 3 young men in their 20s who went through our Friendship House programs, which is an after-school program for kids all the way K through 12th grade in Allendale, Queensboro, Cedar Grove, Martin Luther King, Barksdale Annex in Bossier, Highland. I may have missed one, but anyway, we're in 6 neighborhoods. But anyway, these 3 young men in their 20s have recently joined Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railway. That used to be KCS, right?
Yeah.
They've been out in the MLK area with the Doremus Rail Yard for 60 years. We built a relationship at a corporate level with the guys in Kansas City before they sold to Canadian Pacific 2 years ago. Long story short, we have some pretty great relationships there. They have hired 3 young men in their 20s, young African-American men in their 20s, to career life-changing jobs with Canadian Pacific, Kansas City Southern.
That's great news.
With benefits. I'm talking health insurance. I'm talking 401k options. I'm talking $25 plus an hour starting. I'm talking about opportunities for growth. Do you realize how life-changing
Oh, that is.
that is for
Absolutely.
anybody, especially a young guy in his 20s that just
That
really
grew up in-
has a high school diploma?
Never saw that opportunity when he grew up. And somebody,
Right.
you helped create that. That's key.
That's the
'Cause-
mission.
Yeah.
To show that that's possible. And that's what they're doing. Because you go YouTube Shreveport, Louisiana, and Shreveport rap videos, there's a bunch of young kids with guns and monies, and that influence is there. And if you ignore it, and we ignore it, well then it's gonna keep going. If that's all a kid sees, the only path to success, how can you even blame them really?
So really what we're talking about is building a new network. And I use that word a lot now. It's a new network in the sense of demographically, we're crossing lines of difference. We're crossing lines of socioeconomic differences and classes. We're building, or we're a part of building, a new network. How would these guys been introduced to a senior vice president at Canadian Pacific Kansas City Southern except for our relationship? Now, that's not noble of us. I'm not patting ourselves on the back for that. We just happen to have that relationship. If I know the owner of Chick-fil-A on Uri Drive, which is one of the highest producing Chick-fil-A's in the region, if I know the owner-operator there, and I also know 2 young men who are 16 years old looking for summer jobs, I can take them to meet Brian Russell. Now, they still have to fill out the application and pass the interview. But what I'm talking about here is a new network. Now, that may benefit the 16-year-old, but you know what else it benefits? It benefits that business owner.
Yep.
Because we sometimes
And it benefits that community that they go home
That's exactly
wearing their
right.
uniform.
That's right.
And fighting against what's
I
cool.
like
exactly
that. The new network.
Well, I mean, it is because
It is.
what happens, we usually end up running with our own tribes.
Right.
We're attracted to those that look like us, they vote like us, they have the same hobbies. And so when I talk about new network, I'm talking about crossing lines of difference. And I feel like we help businesses do that, whether it's a local business that wants to fit kids for shoes. And now the employees of that local business don't stop talking about it.
Yeah,
They
that's key.
remember going to the friendship houses and
I
fitting.
want to hit one more thing before we go. I know we're out of time.
We're
I
out
know
of
we're out of time, but I
Okay.
got to ask this because we're not doing our job if we don't. We hit business owners on this, and I'm going to hit nonprofits on this. In our community, sometimes we do a bad job of working together.
Absolutely.
Are the nonprofits in this city working together to get the most good out of the resources that are there? And if not, how can we get better?
We're not maximizing that. We are, as an organization, we're intentionally making some efforts and some strides through something we've started called Circle of Caring. And that is a monthly gathering of churches or congregations, organizations, it could be a service organization, and businesses. And we come together monthly to build relationships with each other and the organizations that we represent. And we are now beginning to talk about what we can do together.
Okay.
Yeah, that's key.
And so we have got a long way to go because, look, we're human beings. We fight for turf. Everybody does. You just say it, call it like it is. You fight for turf and you fight for resources. Fight is a strong word. I should probably peel that back a little bit.
Probably.
Some
But we
of them
You
kill
compete.
for resources.
But at the end of the day, if we're going to really move the needle in this metro area for true social change, which I believe affects economic change and vice versa, we have got to work together.
I love that.
Well,
that is
that's
a
our
great
plea
place.
to everybody. Let's work together.
That's the focus of this episode. Let's work together.
That's
I like
right.
it. All right.
Well, Jimmy, thank
thanks
you.
for coming.
Oh,
this has been really
thank
good.
y'all.
Perfect.
Thank
Cool.
you, Dave,
All right.
Matt.
Enjoy the podcast? We would love your feedback about today's show and who you think should be our next guest. Send us an email at info@eapla.com. Also, be sure to share the show and leave a comment on our social media post.